This is an interview I did recently with Colleen Byram for her Facebook group, Evidential Mediumship Development Forum. In this interview, we talk about some good and bad practices within mediumship, and I hope this is helpful for all those who are developing mediumship. I do hope you enjoy it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen Byram from Evidential Mediumship Development Forum on Facebook, and I'm here today with the tremendous Arthur Findlay College approved tutor, Martin Twycross. Martin also, by the way, before I forget, I would encourage you all to go to his website and have a look at his course in mediumship, which many of us in the group are taking now, and it's fantastic. Martin and I have come together today to talk about sort of best practices in mediumship. And to talk about best practices, sometimes we have to sneak up behind it and talk about the worst practices, the not good practices. So we thought we'd take a swing at the piñata of bad practices in mediumship as a way of introducing alternatives to address those issues. So please join me in welcoming Martin Twycross.
Thank you, Colleen. Lovely to be here with you.
Thank you, Martin. So some not so good practices, sort of. Where do we start with that? What are your concerns?
It's quite a wide range, really, isn't there?
Yes. Unfortunately, I think we keep inventing new ways to be less good at this than we should be. But
so things that really get my goat, really. So there's bigger picture practices versus down to specific practices. If we're looking at bigger picture practices. For example, I recently heard of a medium who told a recipient that your loved one is lost as a lost soul. They didn't go to the spirit world, they've passed and they're in no man's land and everyone's got to pray for them. However, the recipient said, well, they came through the medium last week, so there was no problem there. And I thought that was the most wonderful answer to it. But this idea that people's loved ones can be lost is such a crazy concept. And that's something that really irritates and angers me, because at the end of the day, an even worse scenario I know of is somebody who was told your loved one is not made it to spirit, they're trapped, they're lost, and it's your grief that's holding them there, that you're stopping them going. And you think, well, that's just crazy. Not only have you told them they're lost, but you're also blaming them for it, which is not appropriate. So I think this whole, as mediums, we should understand that when somebody passes to the spirit world, we as soon as we leave this physical body, we're spirit. We're not in a halfway house situation. And as soon as we leave the body, we're in the spirit world. And I believe every soul is met. Somebody comes forward to meet us, whether that's a loved one, whether it may be what we call guides, helpers. We are always met by somebody from the spirit world. But generally, we are family or friend we would know, we would trust. And we are all given the help we need. Nobody is abandoned. Nobody is left. Nobody is stuck. So if a medium tells you your loved one's stuck, lost, generally they're a lousy medium who doesn't understand what they're talking about. That's what I'd say. That's one example.
You know, I think what's so frustrating about that is that oftentimes they're not completely lousy mediums. They're actually, they actually can bring through some evidence. And so it's this mix of validation and disturbing content that's very upsetting for people. I just always want to say, and I write about this a lot on the forum, to think that we as incarnate beings can rescue a trapped spirit is a terrible misunderestimation of God.
Absolutely.
Who are we to step in and do that? I mean, that's nuts. When we leave these meat sacks, it's a binary condition. You're in the meat sack, it's not entirely binary. We know because we connect with people who have all dementia and whatnot. But when you're on the other side, you're all the way over there. There's no waiting room for God.
Absolutely. There's no in between. There's no halfway house. There's no man's land. You're either here or in spirit.
Right.
And I believe the spirit world can take care of everybody. I believe God knows the whereabouts of each soul, each spirit. And when we pass, the people who are best placed to help us if we did need any help, which would maybe form healing for the mind or whatever that may be, if we need any help, I believe spirit is best placed. I don't believe it's us who need to do anything to help them. Mediumship is hard enough as it is to connect to spirits and to receive that communication. When you're in when a spirit is in the spirit world, it should be straightforward for spirit to communicate with each other. So I don't really get why it would need us. And that's another example of a really bad practice. For example, I've seen mediums say to somebody, "Oh, you've got a spirit with you, a negative spirit. You must go and see an exorcist." And the person walks out the room scared, shocked, fearful. And what do? You've just created a scenario that brings up so much fear. They've seen probably the Exorcist film on TV and they're worried what's going to happen to them. They've seen those horror movies. And again, for me, people don't have spirits with them. If you do have a spirit with you, drawn close to you, it's a loved one who links to you. It's somebody who knows you. Many times I've been called out to help people. I'll give you one example. A lady who was blind, someone rang me up and said, "Would you go and see her? She's got this spirit in her home. She's really fearful and frightened." I went there. It was her husband in spirit. And the reason husband was in spirit was so worried about her was that she was not being well looked after by the carers. And he had a great deal of concern about her welfare. So what she was sensing around her as a spirit was just her husband. So the spirits we do have around us, the spirits we do have in our energies, are those who love us. And I have to say as well, I do not believe in the concept of evil spirits or negative spirits. I believe there's an unwritten law that only those who are willing to help us upon the earth are allowed to come forward, to blend with us, to communicate with us, to draw close to us. If they are not willing to do that, they're restricted from doing it. In all my experience of 15 years of doing, not 15, more than that now, 17 years of doing mediumship, I have never once encountered an evil spirit. I have brought people through from the spirit world who've done terrible things, including murder and things like that, but they were misguided. They understand, they recognize they're wrong, they recognize their actions. Somebody stood here would say, well, if they did that, they're an evil spirit, but each soul is allowed the opportunity to progress. And when we reach the spirit world, we can see our lives, we can examine our lives, we can decide where we went wrong, and we can choose to make amends. And in that scenario, you may wish to make amends by linking through a medium to create healing. But ultimately, this idea that, and a lot of people say to me, I'd like to develop as a medium, but I'm really frightened because if I open up the spirit, all these evil spirits will come and get me. And the answer is no, it won't. At the end of the day, if you work with the right intent, you will have no problems and you are naturally protected. We all have guides and helpers who work with us from the spirit world who naturally protect us. So all this talk of evil and negative spirits, again, it just creates fear. And a lot of it is fear-based as well. And, people have religious beliefs. People have watched horror movies, and there's so much of that feeds into it. So I don't do evil spirits. I don't do lost spirits. I don't do earthbound spirits. I don't do negative entities. I have heard people say to people, you've got this negative entity, you better come and see me for some healing. But generally that healing is going to cost you as well. And it's a way of them making money. I know of people who've lost thousands of pounds by doing that. And again, it's shocking. So I don't do any of that. Don't believe in any of that.
Praise the Lord.
If you like, that's big picture stuff.
Well, the big picture stuff is important. For me, while I appreciate the language of universal law, for me, the true shibboleth in understanding these things is quantum physics. If something is alleged, it has to abide by the laws of the universe as we understand them, the physical laws, which now include quantum physics, which explains everything that we do as mediums. My way of talking, and I'm saying this because I think there might be some really geeky people in our community who might relate to my way of understanding it. My way of understanding that nobody who's bad can come through is that it requires a certain amount of, I refer to it as energetic calisthenics or energetic yoga or contortion, to go from the level at which people are operating when they're fully in the spirit world to communicate back to us here in the meat sacks, in the slow, viscous, lower vibration incarnation that we're in. That's not easy for them to get through to us. And in order for them to have mastered that communication channel, they also have to have mastered they have to have attained a level of vibration or frequency on the other side that enables them to come back down here. Does that make sense?
I kind of understand what you're saying, yeah.
You're a physicist.
Oh, yeah. But for me, people who come forward to work with us, to help us in the spirit world, they have to have a connection with us as well.
Those are the ties of love, right?
Bonds of love, bonds of friendship, or those who have a desire to help us. There has to be an attraction, a connection. And, somebody who's not got that cannot do it. It's just not going to happen. If you think about the law of attraction, like attracts like, you've got to have something that, and generally, people come back to us from the spirit world through bonds of love because we've got that connection already established with them. So again, it's logical that the only people you're going to get from the spirit world are those as friends and family, those you care about, those you love, or those who are choosing to work with you for your overall greater benefit. So, I think to a degree, my own mind, even though I know lots about physics, kind of thinks, well, that's kind of, I see that, but I just like to keep it simple.
Well, this raises another practice question, and I usually like to know the answers to these things in an interview before I ask them, but I'll tip out on the gangplank here. Summoning spirits. I'll just come out and say I don't believe that. I just don't think that's quite cricket to summon random spirits, celebrities, politicians from the past.
No, why would someone who doesn't know you want to come and be there? And how can you prove it anyway? The problem you have is there is practically no way of proving, unless you have someone who they know really well and they can bring through information only known to the two of them. Then there's no way of proof anyway of you getting a famous person.
And then, of course, if they've got somebody there, then the ties of love exist. Then you
exactly.
Medium person, yeah.
It is possible for famous people to come through when the person sat in front of you or in an audience actually knows them. But generally, they won't put their hands up and say, I'm this famous person. You'll not even know who they are. They're just a person who comes forward, and you may say, well, I feel as if they were on stage, on an actor. Yeah. But afterwards, they'll tell you, oh, by the way, that was such and such. And you go, really? Yeah. But at the time, you'll never know because spirit are not there. It's not about them telling you all about me. It's about that reconnection of that friendship or that family bond. So, I believe, and there's another practice here, which I'll talk about as well. The idea that you can go to a medium and demand who you want. And sometimes people will come and I only want this person. Well, the problem we have is that person has to be available in the spirit world and has a desire to communicate via a medium. If they don't, then they won't necessarily come. And then equally, if you think about, I often talk about the radio metaphor. You may have heard me in my classes talk about the radio analogy, where each medium is like a radio receiver, and the spirit is a whole bunch of different frequencies that people can send communication on, and we all cover a certain wavelength or a certain band, and there's only a certain number of people who would be a good fit for me. So that person you may want may not necessarily be a good fit for me as a medium, so I may not be able to link with them. And you may go to another medium and they may be able to come through much more easily. But for me, they're quite hard to get. I can't establish a good link. Or if I do get a link, it's a bit like when you tune in a radio badly and it comes in and out and in and out, and it's not really very good. It's a bit flaky. So the idea of summoning a specific person to come at a specific time, the reality is it doesn't happen that way. It can happen. You could be lucky and the person may wish to communicate. They may be there, but it's not always guaranteed. But the idea of saying, some people have come to me and said, can you bring through this famous person for me? And I'll say, well, did you know them? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, well, I can't, because why would they come? They've got better things to do in the spirit world. So, and then there's the concept of you know, we can summon spirits of a certain type, and for me, all of it's a bit crazy, really. I don't go there. I don't do that. You know, at the end of the day, I agree. Summoning spirits, no. At the end of the day, I think if a medium guarantees to get a person, I think that's wrong. I know some mediums who will take a booking. The person will say, I want to hear from my grandmother on my mum's side. And the medium will say, yeah, I'll get them for you. And they'll take a booking and guarantee it. And you can't. Yeah. Because it's not appropriate to do it, because there's no guarantee we can always get them. Mediumship is always experimental. We have to understand that there are no guaranteed outcomes whenever we do mediumship. And, you know, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, something else that we sort of touched on earlier between when we've talked about this before is we both have some thoughts. Perhaps you would like to share our thoughts about when a spirit person comes to us. Is that an energy? Is it an entity? Is it a father figure? Is it a mother figure?
It's a spirit person. They're a real living person. You know, the term entity has so many connotations from horror movies. I never, ever talk about spirit entity. You'll never hear those words come out of my mouth unless it's in a disparaging way generally. So I don't do spirit entities. They're people. And for me, I also don't like the term energy, because they're an energy. Well, no, they're not. They're a living consciousness. They're a living person. They're a living mind. We don't talk about each other in this world as energy. Oh, I'm just popping over to see that Mary energy. No, you wouldn't say that. You know, I'm going to go home and see me mother energy. Why would you talk about people from the spirit world the same? And equally, I'm not a big fan of the word figure. If a medium works and says, I've got a mother figure here or a father figure here, what do they really mean? For me, it's just sloppy language. It's vague language. You're not really saying what, you know, if I say I've got father figure, well, he could be your father. He could be somebody else's father. He could be a father to somebody. He could be a grandfather. As long as he's had a child, he could be a father. Or he could be on the same level of family as your father. He's the next generation up. What are we really saying? You know, either it's a father or it's not a father, but we don't really need the figure, because we're hedging our bets. Now, occasionally as mediums, we get father-in-law, but we only sense the father part of it, and we may give them as father. And it could be father-in-law, but sometimes we don't always pick up the in-law. But I would never use the word. I would say it feels very fatherly. I've got a very fatherly feel to this gentleman, but I wouldn't say father figure, because I don't like it. And I know some people don't really like the word earth plane as well. Earth plane and spirit plane, the planes that are flying. You know, they're here or they're in spirit. Yeah. You know, it's to start using terminology that it gets a bit complicated. We don't really need it. Keep it simple.
One of the reasons I like to get us talking about spirit people as people is that without having to introduce the topic as a separate thing, it gets us right automatically into good manners. You know, thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for working with me. And thank you for being here. Goodbye. I mean, I think manners count. Am I crazy, or do you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, for me, if we ever get into the point of not thinking that we're working with real people, we're doing them a disservice. And we should certainly always be polite and well-mannered as a medium, both to our audience or recipient and to the spirit world. And we should thank them for working with us. All of that, absolutely. But at the end of the day, we should remember what mediumship is about. Mediumship is about giving those in the spirit world an opportunity to communicate and be reunited with their loved ones within this world, and an opportunity to allow healing to take place, an opportunity to touch a soul. It's such a profound and amazing thing. And at the end of the day, if we ever stop thinking that they're people, that they're just a set of memories from the past, no, they're real living people. And when we reunite two people in this world, if I put you in a room with someone you care about and love, you're going to have a conversation with them. When I put you in a room with someone you care about and love, you're not just going to say to one person, I remember this, or I remember that, and I'm this high. No, there's going to be communication and conversation take place. And so as mediums, yes, our job is to demonstrate who we have Our job is to bring through evidence that shows who we're linking with, so the recipient genuinely knows, yes, you've got them. But then I believe we have to free that person to spend time with their loved one. We have to free them to be with them without imposing any of our own rules on what should or shouldn't be said. We need to give them the voice, the free voice, to share what needs to be shared in that moment, to say what needs to be said, to reconnect however they wish to reconnect. And that's why we have to think of them as people, to give them that opportunity. If we just think of them as memories and you say, you're a bunch of memories, I need how you passed, I need your age at passing, I need what you did as a job, and I'd like a name, please. And you don't even give a message or don't allow them to communicate. We're doing them a massive disservice. They're not a set of memories. They're not an energy. They're living people. Let them be living people. Let us work with the living. I always say, people say to me, you're a medium. That's talking to the dead, isn't it? And I say, no, it's working with the living, whether in this world or the next.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well said, Martin. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's beautiful. That's perfect. So you wandered into an area of peevishness that I have, which is in the area of messages. I find that I very rarely I find that the messages tend to arise from the evidence.
Yes.
That they're going to show me and allow me eventually to get to the place where I am sharing information that contains the message. I don't like fluffy messages. Oh, they really miss you. They love you. And they really miss you. You know what I mean? The fluffy messages. I mean, maybe the spirit people do say that, and I know they do communicate the ties of love because I feel it surge through my body. I feel that. I love that. Fluffy messages. What do you say?
Yeah, the messages is an interesting one. And to talk about messages, I have to kind of take a step back. Okay. And to talk about messages, we need to understand that, first of all, they're real people. And secondly, when we allow them to communicate with us, there's two schools of thought. One is that you do a question and answer. Who are you? What's your age? What was your passing condition? Show me your personality. What do you do for a living? Give me a shared memory. And where we drive the mediumship, because we're asking all the questions and we expect spirit to answer it. The other school of thought is that we don't do anything. We make that blend, we make that connection, we surrender and let it happen. We let them give us everything they wish to give us. I kind of send the thought that you're going to have to give me some evidence. I don't mind what you give me, but there's got to be some evidence in it to show who you are to your recipient, to show who you are to the sitter. And so there'll need to be evidence within it. But I'm not going to ask you to give me any specific evidence. Let's just let it happen as it happens. So with that, what I call the blend and surrender approach of mediumship, we just let it unfold naturally. And what comes forward, the evidence that comes forward generally tends to build into a message because the spirit are delivering it. They're telling their story. They're telling what they wish to communicate. And we're just the middleman delivering it. But when we say, no, I'm not interested in what you want to give me, and we say, I want you to give, I always have names, I always do names, I always do age, I always do this, always do that. And the spirit person's saying, but I want to communicate. And you're saying, no, give me what I'm asking for. You've restricted conversation. You've restricted that communication. And then when you're looking for the message, where is the message? Well, actually, because you've forced them to do something they didn't want to do, the message hasn't unfolded naturally within it, and you can't find it. Right. And then people finish with a generic message, take their love, or and they're very proud of you, and it's kind of what I call a very simple generic message. And sometimes that's what comes through anyway. Sometimes people do bring a huge amount of love for somebody, and I share a little story with you that in going way back a little bit in the UK, was a lady called Cilla Black who was from Liverpool, and she was on a lot of TV programs, and she had a catchphrase called "a Laura love." She used to give people a Laura love, meaning lots of love. And for a while, a lot of my messages that I used to give when I was working at the Arthur Findlay College, I would give a lot of love at the end. And in the end, people started calling me the Cilla Black of mediumship. in that I always give a lot of love at the end. And it made me think, and I had to say, okay, that's not right then. So I now need to deepen the evidence, and surrender to the flow and deepen the message. And now I don't do that. I might do it occasionally, but not often at all. And sometimes it takes those things to wake us up, to push deeper, to move, to get what we're getting. But definitely with the message, if we allow Spirit to tell their own story, if we allow them to let it build and we don't interfere, provided it's a good link, because you have to have a very good, strong link. They have to be a good communicator for that to happen. Then generally, the message will naturally unfold from the evidence, and it will be quite easy. And they will communicate what they wish to communicate about their loved one because they can and they care. But so that's the key thing, is letting them deliver it, letting them unfold it, let them tell their story, let them give what needs to be said in this moment in time to help their loved one, to let their loved one know they know what goes on in their lives, to let their loved one know that they're there for them. But if we try and restrict it, sometimes with platform mediumship, you're working within a window of, generally we say 6 to 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. And within that, you have to demonstrate survival on a church platform, because that's what the nature of the purpose of mediumship within spiritualism is, to demonstrate survival. So you may only end up with a short time at the end to deliver the message, but hopefully the message should unfold naturally within the link anyway.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you focus too much upon demonstrating survival, you haven't got that much time for the message at the end, and it can shorten it. And people then do just give this throwaway message. Oh, well, take their love. And there's a school of thought that says that mediums of the past never gave messages. The fact your loved one was here, the fact your loved one was communicating to you, was message enough. But in the modern day age, we expect a message of some description. So most people within a church environment within the UK would expect a message. And practically everybody I know within a sitting would want a message from their loved one. They wouldn't just want evidence. They wouldn't just want facts about their life. They'd want to know that their loved one knows what's going on in their life right now. They'd want to know that their loved one knows their challenges. Their loved one is proud of their achievements and their successes. That their loved one knows they've got this exam coming up and they're rooting for them. All those things. If Spirit is truly a living consciousness, which they are, absolutely, they are going to know what's happening in our lives. They're going to know what's most important to us. So our job as a medium is to bring that. Our job as a medium is to allow that to surface naturally within the communication. And for me, if my family comes to communicate from Spirit and they don't mention the major issues that may be taking place at this moment in time within the family, I kind of question is, are they really there? If I've got something life-changing going on in my own life and Spirit don't even touch upon it, and everything's all rosy, and they're just here to say, I'm here just to let you know I'm here with my love. That's it. Goodbye. I kind of go, well, that doesn't seem right to me. So if we're truly representing Spirit and we're truly saying we can communicate with Spirit, which we are, then that communication should have real depth and meaning. And when it does have that depth and meaning, that's what separates out the better mediums from the not so good ones. And when you give somebody a message that shows that their loved one is a living consciousness, knows what's happening at this moment in time, can give you things. Also, they can give things as well that the person says, I don't know about that, I better go away and check. So it proves we're not reading them psychically. So they go away and check, and they send you a message and say, that's amazing. So they know they're watching the entire family. They know what's going on with all their loved ones. Well, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? And that kind of brings me to an idea as well as to, I don't know if you want me to touch upon this, but how spirits see us. Because, some people will often say to me, does spirit see me when I'm in the bath? Does spirit see every little thing I do? And the answer is, for me, they don't have physical eyes. They're not in this physical world. They see us through our thoughts. They see us predominantly with what we're thinking of. They see us through our energy. So that's why spirit should know what you're thinking. And if you're worrying about something, it's in your energy. When they interact with you, they'll know about it. So whenever we talk about working psychically with people, we can pick up what's uppermost in their energy field. It's there to be taken psychically. But that's what spirit are working with. They know all of that. They know all our thoughts. If we're worried about something, worried about spirit knowing about it, and that's uppermost in our thoughts, you've communicated it.
That's terrific. Thank you. Tell me if this makes sense to you. First of all, I don't always get messages. And most of the time when I do, I don't understand them. And those tend to be the most impactful ones. It's like, he wants to, it's just something that means nothing to me. And it brings my sitter into tears. And I'm like, oh, or laughter,
Yes. That's the thing as well, you see. It's not for us to know. We are merely the middleman. We are merely the medium through which it comes. It's not for our minds to make sense of what's being said. It's not for us to know the ins and outs of why it's being given. And when we truly surrender to the process and we allow that communication to take place, often it's the smallest things we say. And sometimes people will say to me afterwards, the words you used were the exact same words he'd tell me. You used the exact same words. And I forget what I give, because as soon as I've said it, I kind of forget. I kind of monitor it coming out of my mouth to make sure that I'm tactful. I'm saying it with compassion and love. But as soon as I've said it, it's not for me to know about or understand or comprehend and hold on to. So I just release it. So people say to me at the end of a demonstration, oh, you gave me that message. And I'm thinking, which one? And I'm thinking, what did their loved one communicate? I have no idea half the time, because it comes through me. I release it. It's not for me to hold on to. It's for us to let go. And same with what is said, it's meaningful to the recipient. But if it provokes a reaction with the recipient, if it provokes a profound emotional reaction, again, it's not for me to say, why did it do that? I just accept that whatever's happening is happening. And again, I don't need to be nosy. If they wish to tell me afterwards, if they wish to say, oh, that was amazing, you really got me when you said, because that was the last memory we had together, that was so important. But the communicator and the recipient, they know that memory. I don't. We see recipients and sitters get very, very emotional. And we have to acknowledge the emotion. We have to sometimes say, is it okay for me to continue? But it's not for us to understand. It's between them. It's their relationship, not ours. So we kind of have to just, if you like, sit outside of it. And that is another thing that really irritates me when I see mediums get emotional, when they get into the energy of it and a medium starts crying or can't continue because this is just too emotional. And I see some TV mediums who do this. And I honestly, that's another thing that gets my goat, because a professional medium, it comes through you. It doesn't affect you. You stay to the side. If you feel the emotion begin to rise within you, you step out of it, you move out of it. We have to be trained to do that. It's not always easy. But as we're sensitives, we are very sensitive to emotion. But we have to remember, it's not our emotion. We're not there to cry on behalf of the sitter. On behalf of the communicator. We're there to allow it to come through and for that connection to take place between them, separate to us. We're the middleman that creates it, but we're not in the middle of it. We're not in the way of it. We're not interfering with it. We're not. And for me, when I see mediums allow the emotion to get the better of them, I always feel it. I've seen mediums have to stop giving a link, stop giving a contact because they're too emotional with it. And you're not allowing that communication and that healing to take place. So again, that's another area of little things that get me.
Well, Martin, that's fantastic. And for those of you who are viewing this, you've heard me say and seen me write many times, make the point that Martin Twycross is an incredibly generous teacher. I think we just all got a great example of what I mean by that. Martin has such depth as a medium and is such a generous teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. No, if I know it, I'm happy to share it. If it will help somebody, I will talk about it. Being generous, I think, is another quality we should have as mediums. At the end of the day, that generosity of spirit is what spirit want to work with us for. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Thank you, Martin. Well, we will try and convene again together to have a conversation where hopefully it's mostly me listening and mostly you talking. Thank you so much for joining.
I do get carried away.
Pardon me?
I do get carried away.
It's your job to get carried away. I'm the one who needs to zip it and let you get carried away. Thank you so much, Martin. It's always a pleasure. Really,
No, it's always a pleasure to speak to you and share my knowledge with everybody, Colleen. It's lovely.
And everybody, again, Martin's website is Twycross. It's www.martintwycross.com, and you can find his mediumship coursework there that you can purchase, I think, on a session basis, or you purchase. How does that work, Martin?
Yeah, I've got 24 videos, individual videos covering all sorts of mediumship, and you can purchase them individually. I also have a study program which is based on those videos, but for every video it adds a tutorial, and the tutorial basically goes through the material in more detail, and each tutorial has over 30 questions generally about the content to drill into it in more detail. So if you want a really structured approach to it, then I recommend the study program with the modules. If you want to just trial a video, check out a video on a specific topic, you can buy that video by itself as both a download, and for those of us who are old school, you can even have it as DVD as well. They do exist as physical DVDs.
Oh my, that is old school now, isn't it?
It is.
And just let me add to that these are super affordable. So head on over to the website and check them out. Thanks again, Martin. We'll do this again soon. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you, Colleen. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I also offer a series of 24 videos covering all aspects of mediumship, mediumship classes 1 to 12, plus an additional 12 special topics videos. They are all available as video downloads or DVDs from my website, which is www.martintwycrossproducts.co.uk.